Radio in motion. Program loading in 3, 2, 1. Program activated.
Attention everyone, the unpleasant noise you are about to hear coming from your radio is not a mistake.
Okay, first things first, what is your name?
This is Big Sonny playing the best of the 90s and beyond.
Are you ready for this?
Yeah. Radio in motion.
Please do not turn off your radio, but turn up the volume on your receiver as high as it can go.
All right, here we go.
Radio in motion.
All right, welcome back, everyone. We're going to have another episode of The Ugly Truth. The truth can be ugly, but it can set you free. I've got my special guest with me. I've got Ronald on the line. You there, Ronald?
Yep, I'm all here.
Excellent. You can hear me all right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's always the first step. So I just wanted to first introduce you, and you obviously do volunteer firefighting in Australia. Could you tell me a bit about sort of your experience and your history here doing that?
Yeah, certainly. I've been in the volunteer fighter with the Diamond Creek Fire Brigade for over 18 years now, and in that period we've dealt with significant and major disasters right across the country, as well as within Victoria as well, including the Black Saturday fires. Over that time, it's been a fairly involved process, and I'm proud to be part of the community and supporting the community and keeping it safe.
That's amazing. You got a bit of a bad connection, so just making sure you can hear me. You still there?
Yep, absolutely. I can hear you loud and clear.
All right, because yours is cracking up a bit, but we can still hear you. So I don't know, have you been obviously watching a bit of what's been going on with the horrific fires in the Hollywood Palisades area?
Absolutely, I have, and I've also been listening in on the radio comms live. I have an app that links into the fire services and emergency responders, and so I've been keeping up to date with how things are progressing right to the very minute. So that's been quite helpful, and just basically understanding the enormity of it all. Thoughts and prayers go out to all those families that lost properties and businesses and so on, and also to all the firefighters that have responded from all the different countries as well, Canada, Mexico, and the like.
Yeah, definitely. Look, and a couple of things I want to talk about. Look, it always seems to be, everything always gets political and divisive, and there's this big issue about there not being enough water. Obviously, you need that. But I suppose the first thing I was always thinking about is that, especially in that area, this is not new. And I know fire is a beast that can certainly be unpredictable, but they've known for decades this is an area that they live in that has these fires. Not too long ago, 2018, an entire town called Paradise completely burned to the ground, and that was 10,000 homes destroyed, 85 dead. That's just in 2018. And I guess what I wanted to talk about is, I know in Australia, they understand about burning off, and the thing is in LA, they've stopped a few things that I think are important, and I don't know why. Logging seems to be evil, and clearing brush seems to be evil. And I'm all for the climate, but I think they need to be smart, and that's a couple of things they haven't done. What are your thoughts on that? Not clearing the brush. All right, thanks for joining us. Just had a few phone difficulties there. Hopefully we've got Ronald back on the line. You there, Ronald?
Yep, that's loud and clear.
All right, that sounds much better. Like I say, I didn't want to miss what you were talking about because you were giving some great stuff, and I don't want them to just hear me because I don't know what I'm talking about. So again, I was saying that a lot of people believe that it's because they didn't prepare and think ahead, and that there are things they can do to mitigate these kind of things. But as you were saying, is that even if they were doing logging and clearing the brush and preparing for it, that this is something that it's the perfect storm. And I think the Hollywood area and the Palisades and all the Hollywood Hills, I think they've just been lucky. Do you think they've just been lucky and this was bound to happen?
Yeah, agreed. It's just like the tornadoes in the centre and the central west as well. This building, and everything came together and to create the perfect storm. So, it's one of those things. And water, yes, I understand it. The infrastructure that was put in place is only really designed to, say, look after 2 or 3 house fires in one street. But when the whole street's going, there's no way that you can put enough water on those things to combat them and try and mitigate those fires. It's just too big. It's overwhelming, and it ultimately it's just a matter of trying. It's a game of chess. You've got to try and plan and understand with the weather conditions where it is likely to go, and try and predict that and anticipate that. But in an urban environment, it's so hard because there's just so much fuel, both in the structures, but also in the foliage and growth around that area. So, it's a really, really tough one.
Well, to give an idea of what they're fighting, again, there are still quite a few burning, but it was 105 wildfires, over 40,000 acres, and I'm sure that's more now, burned up, over 12,000 structures destroyed. And again, look, it's more about, you want to make sure that lives are saved and getting people out. 24 dead was the count, but they did give a number, because this is L.A., this is California property. They're saying it's like 250 billion, just in loss. And I guess, again, it's about, this is sort of the great leveler of whether you're someone in the rich Hollywood Hills or you're just a regular 9-to-5er. They've all come together, because you mentioned community. I think they've all come together. It's sad that it has to be this wake-up call, and focus on your neighbor and community, because they've all really pitched in to help each other. I mean, if that's something good to come of it. Have you seen a lot of that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've seen it here in Australia as well. We teams pull together and we basically get ourselves through these major disasters, be it flood, fires, or whatever. It's one of those things. So the community spirit is very, very strong, and it's good to see that. Unfortunately, we need those people to really step up and just make it try and alleviate the pain, because there's going to be so much pain in relation to this, and the aftermath is going to be it's huge, and people are going to need that support. So yeah.
And look, I know you've seen, because we've talked before, you've seen some horrific things here, and the fire just rip through one section and then miss another house, kind of like tornadoes. People think, how does that happen? How does it miss a certain house? And I feel like, again, that area, it's the desert. Okay, they live in the desert. There's not a lot of water anyway. It's already this huge basin, and then there's those fierce winds like a tunnel. I'm just curious, from your experience seeing areas here that got built back up, how do people return to the same area where they know fire is gonna start again? Again, I know they're not gonna move from Hollywood, but what's next? How do you rebuild and then get ready for next time, or do you just not?
Some people do, some people don't. It's their call, and we saw it at the aftermath of the Black Saturday fires. Some people basically did not want to move from where they were, or they moved away, and then they decided they were going to rebuild. And it really depends on your contingencies, and the big one here is going to be insurance. There's going to be so many people that have not or did not have insurance, and that's going to be a really tough one. It's going to be a significant cost to the entire United States of America. It's going to be huge.
Yeah, look, I've obviously heard that, and that's the other big topic, is that people are already being dropped from their insurance, or they're going to try to make a claim, and someone who has spent their life, again, it's sort of the great equalizer, someone who's spent their life, including, the Hollywood elite. I'm not going to lie, they've also spent a lot of their time and money. there's the Mel Gibsons and the Billy Crystals and the Paris Hiltons. They've all been affected too. But the regular guys affected, and I don't think any of them. I don't even think the millionaires are going to be able to rebuild, if that makes sense. That's how bad it is.
Yeah, I agree. It's just a horrible circumstance, and and how resilient the individuals are, and it's going to be a real battle for years to come. It's going to take a lot of healing and a lot of money, unfortunately.
Yeah, look, and also I know the U.S. is different than Australia. Australia is still inherently a younger country as such, but especially in the California area, another thing they blamed is an aging infrastructure. A lot of those power poles, and this is no joke, because I've always noticed that here. You see the movies on TV in LA. That's real. They still have old power poles that are like 50 years old, no joke, or more. I mean, like some of them are like from the 1930s. And what's your take on that? Why don't they focus on that, trying to get some of that underground? Because the power pole falls, not even about starting a fire. It falls in front of a fire engine, and that's what's been happening, and they can't get through. Is there those issues in Australia? Does that happen here?
To a lesser degree. A lot of the newer suburbs are now building all their infrastructure underground, and and that's a good thing, and that's a learnt lesson from fires in the past. So, yeah, the other one is the high voltage power lines. They feature quite heavily in certain environments, and freak storm cells will tear these things down, and then they bring the lines down onto the causeways, and then up the flames. It flares up, and away it goes. So, it's just one of those things, I think, and we're dealing with extraordinary weather conditions. Something that yes, okay, they do get a little bit of it on a regular basis, but this is just one out of the box. It's just something that it's catastrophic. And you just got to try and work your way through it, rebuild, pick up, and get back on the horse again, I guess.
Yeah, that's it. And look, the people do have that resilience, and I certainly hope they can find that. Another sort of topic that's been around is again, it's not about trying to. It's too late to find the blame, but this is about prevention. And I was curious about your experience with this. A lot of these fires tend to be, sometimes it's just act of God, nature, but sometimes it's started by people, whether it's someone, they're lighting fires in dumpsters or on purpose, or even a campfire by accident. I'm just curious what you think. A lot of them, the source of the word arson, is that something you've ever had experience with, where someone was starting a fire for any malicious needs, or innocently started a fire and then a whole town is ablaze?
Yeah, look, that's something that is always a very tender subject to deal with, it's a hard one too, because you've got to understand that some people just, unfortunately, they have a passion for fire and things like that, and those people, we can't. You can't. Well, you can monitor them, but it's a really tough one. Campers irresponsible. Yes, I've encountered that as well, and it's just a small thing, but unfortunately it escalates to something bigger. So yes, I have encountered that in the past.
Is there any in the current region that you sort of cover, or any others that you know of, other areas in Australia where you think this kind of thing could happen again, or have steps been put into place to better try to avoid that from experience, from all that you've learned?
Yeah, it's really, really hard to counter it. You just don't know. And here in Victoria, we've got the tobacco, legal tobacco wars going on, and they're torching stuff, deliberately and maliciously, and just, we can't control that, and we just got to put the fire out and
and do as best we can. But the fire investigators, they are looking into it. They are doing their utmost to try and deter this action, and it's just one of those things. And I've encountered a car just sitting after it's pulled up in the car park, and it just sat there, and then the next minute it's on fire. So there was an electrical issue with that. So those sort of things you just really can't plan for, but you've just got to react to it and respond to it. And I guess that's my, not a passion, but that's what I enjoy with the fire service, because it's such a varied and dynamic environment, and you've got to be so aware of your surroundings and also aware of your team members to make sure that they are safe, and go from there.
Yeah, the other thing obviously is when it's when it all settles, when the dust settles, the aftermath is people are always looking for who to blame. Obviously, I'm not going to say that the governor doesn't have a lot on his hands, as well as just trying to be a good leader and keep everyone calm. But again, he really needs to be smart and think of some answers for the questions they have. The thing that I think was interesting is the fire chief, Kristen Crowley, was asked, do you think the mayor, Karen Bass, let the people down? And she said pretty much without a skip she just said yes. Do you think that kind of thing is inherently, that just happens afterwards, people start to point fingers rather than say, let's just move forward?
Sadly, yes. It's a really, real tough one. It comes from all areas as well. There's pressure from the environmentalists, there's pressure from the infrastructure and privatisation of private businesses and so on. So we're dealing with quite a big area, and there's a lot to take in and a lot to try and control to the best of your ability. But this is just like any other natural disaster. It's just like an earthquake, the earthquake in Tibet just recently. You've got to try and counter it and hopefully learn from it. There was quite a bit of there was a inquiry, a government inquiry into the Black Saturday fires, and of that came quite a few recommendations, and we implemented a lot of those recommendations to hopefully, the next time it comes, we can perform better. And the CFA, I have to give them credit that they try to. They're a dynamic environment, a dynamic organisation, but they're also trying to counter and look ahead and develop. Their training is second to none, and our chief officer is always looking out for everybody, be they career firefighters as well as volunteer firefighters like myself.
Now, another thing the leaders in California are literally getting raked across the coals for is cutting budget. Again, I get it. Everyone wants their piece of the pie, but they actually cut about $17 million from the fire department's budget. Does that sort of thing cross over here, or especially with the volunteer departments? Is there ever something where you're like, if we only had this, we could have done better?
Yes and no, because CFA statutory authority, they are able to, produce legislation. But the issue is that, in any situation, government look at budgets and so on, and yes, we've had some cuts into our financing as well, and our budget. But we do the utmost and do the best in those circumstances. So it's going to be right across the board everywhere, and there will be reviews. I can assure you that I know in America it's a little bit different with their governance and so on, but there will be an inquiry, and hopefully from there we can step forward and make changes. to try and counter it. But it could even be something as silly as building a wall around the basin, and who knows? These are something that engineers and hydrologists and so on. It's a topographical issue as well. Because it's sitting right in that basin, right on the edge of the desert. So, you never know. They talked about the floods here up in New South Wales, and they were literally going to move a whole town because of these floods. It could be. They might move Los Angeles. Who knows?
Well, look, that's a thing I've talked about in the past. If you want to get real deep, technically Los Angeles really shouldn't exist. That town sort of has thrived off of taking water from other towns for a century. I know it's terrible to say, but it's true. They've always taken water, but now they're the ones, obviously, they're trying to source water, and they're actually having to buy some of it back for private companies. Again, that's a whole other battle they'll have to get into. But I mean, to not have water, or is there anything you think that they could... Is there any technology thinking outside the box? Obviously, you can't use salt water; it destroys the soil. But is there any way to harness that, or desalinization, or is that all just a pipe dream? How can you get more water to the right places?
Yeah, look, desal plants like the big one that we have here in Victoria, that could be an option. It's really pumping that water up into reservoirs above the city. And yeah, look, that could be an option. That's something definitely to consider.
Now I know. I'm just always trying to think. What water is the precious resource, and technically we live in a water planet. It just always is the wrong kind of water. But there's a lot of salt water, and I feel like if they just had thought outside the box, there would have been a way they could have just drenched the whole place with salt water that was desalinized or whatever. But I was also wanting to ask. So I know in the U.S. they have their hot shots crews, but those are obviously for rural fires. And then there's structure side firefighters. Is there similar in Australia, as in a federal hot shots crew that goes out to the bushfires in the wilderness?
Yes, there is, and they are part of the DELP, or the Department of Environment, and I think it's a new name now this year as well. But they helicopter these young firefighters into and experienced guys into hot environments, and they pre-plan it so that they're actually moving ahead of the fire and set down earth lines and so on, and fire breaks and that sort of stuff. So yeah, we do, but it's probably not on the scale of what goes on in America. I did see it in Canada, and I did see it in the States as well. But when I was over there, it's nowhere near as big as what we've got here in Australia. It's just on a massive scale.
But in this case, again, obviously, if they could have done it, they would have. In this case, it would have been of no use, because dealing with structure fires is different than trying to cut a line out in the wilderness. So if they brought in firefighter hotshots, it would have been pointless. There's nothing they could do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, their skills, unfortunately, they wouldn't be. Well, some of them can. They can team up with structural firefighters and then assist them that way. They have an understanding of fire, so and that's probably something that we do a lot. We team up with. We had a few New Zealanders. We had some Fijians. We had. I've even seen Greek firefighters coming across, and some French firefighters in some of the fire campaigns, and Canadians as well. What you do is you spread your resources around as best you can, and give them a team of locals that they can work under, because you, as a local, understand the terrain, understand the conditions that may come about, and then you look out for those team members and give them guidance.
Well, that's fantastic. You answered my next question. I was always curious, do, the hot shots and the structural firefighters, do they ever mix, or is it like chalk and cheese? So there are instances where those skills could mix, because fire is fire, even though you have a different specialty.
That is correct. Yeah, absolutely. And we share our resources with FRV, which is Fire Rescue Victoria, as CFA firefighters. So and it's reciprocal as well. So we go into FRV territory, and we do operate and help out and support the FRV team players as well. We're quite fortunate in our brigade in that we have probably some of the best equipment that some of the volunteer fire stations has available to us. We are a combined services station, so we actually have police, and we did have ambulances, Ambulance Victoria, as well as the fire service, all in the one building. So it's made it a hub, and we work very closely with all emergency responders. So and both fire FRV, career firefighters, as well as volunteers.
Well, look, our hearts certainly go out to everyone that's been affected by the fires in all the Pasadena and Palisades area. Obviously, it will be a long road ahead. I was going to ask you, is there, I suppose, just one instance where you were fighting a fire and you felt like it's just not going to happen and it's time to go, but something happened and maybe you were able to turn it around? As in, when did you see hope that you beat the fire and you didn't just run from it? Or does it not work like that? Is it always just hope against hope?
No. We are very calculated in the way we approach fire, and we, again, I keep putting back on. It is literally a game of chess, be it in the structure. We've had major structural buildings within the area catch fire, and you've got to understand, what's going to be the driving aspect of it. Where is the fire going to move to next? And you try and preempt that as best you can, and that comes with training and also experience as well. And we've got a good mix. We've got 75 active firefighters in the brigade. So it's a good cross section and we're all 100% volunteer brigade as well. So we're on the card 24/7. Even tonight, I'm not down there tonight, but there's a training session going on right this very minute, which is basically going over emergency drills and also looking at structural firefighting training.
Well, that's it. That says it all. Training and making sure you cultivate professional fire crews that work together well, and like you say, it's a game of chess. It's not about hope. It's about you are strategic, and I'm sure sometimes there's a percentage of luck, but you don't want to rely on luck.
No, absolutely not.
No.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I thank you so much, Ronald. Thank you for joining me. That has been such a great conversation. And like I say, definitely would love to have you join me again. I'm sure we could get stuck into a lot more. I'll probably have questions about, drones and firefighting. I've seen that sort of stuff. So
yep.
I'm sure we can have a good chat.
Yep,
all right.
Sure.
Thank you so much. All right.
My pleasure.
All right. I'll talk to you later. Thanks again.
Bye for now.
All right. Bye for now. All right, that was Ronald, obviously an awesome firefighter with a great crew, and some great comments there talking about his experience personally, and giving some insight to what's happening with the fires in California. All right, thanks for joining me on The Ugly Truth. We'll have a few more great 90s song on our summer countdown, 90s summer countdown on Radio Motion. You're listening to 99.3 FM. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.